Hello and welcome to the ESPC Property Show. I'm one of your hosts, Megan, and I'm joined by, as always, by
Paul. Here I am.
Yes. So today we've got quite a special episode for you. We're on location filming next week's episode, but we wanted to just come and give you an introduction to this week's episode. So it's something a little bit different. We spoke to 3 of our solicitor estate agent member firms.
And they had a lot to go through. We covered a lot, and I thought in the end what we decided we split into two separate podcasts. First one was on the market review and predictions for the rest of the year. So some really good nuggets there on what they think is going to happen. Yeah. And then we did something different in the second half. We looked at more of the political landscape and really challenged our members on questions such as what do they think of rent controls, if they were in government, what they would do to improve and help, with the crisis that we face in the housing market. So certainly didn't pull any punches.
Yeah, absolutely not. So for this first part, as Paul said, we're doing a market review and we'll just let you listen to it for yourself. So here is our first part of the episode. We're doing our round table today without a round table.
It's got like a little oval one in the middle there, yeah.
So I just wondered if you guys would all want to introduce yourself. Matthew, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm Matthew Gray, the Managing Director of Gilson Gray Property Services, and very much looking forward to taking part in this conversation this afternoon.
Absolutely. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Howard, Property Consultant at Nielsen Solicitors and Estate Agents.
I'm Derek Brien, Head of Sales at VMH Solicitors.
Perfect. Well, guys, the first reason we wanted to have you on was just to kind of chat about how the market's been for the first half of the year. So, yeah, how have the last 6 months been?
Better than the 6 months preceding them, I think it's probably fair to say.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was slightly concerned about the cost of living and which direction we were travelling, but I think the market has definitely settled down. The enthusiasm for buying is still there. The reasons for moving are always the same: upsizers, downsizers, school moves, marriage, divorce. And in addition to that, we are beginning to see some younger first-time buyers entering into the market as well. And it's quite an exciting time for them.
I think it's interesting that first-time buyers seem to have far larger budgets now than when I was a boy, admittedly quite some time ago. But yeah, you'll get viewing requests or folk will phone in and say, I'm first-time buyer, budget 400 grand, and you're like, geez, that's just, as I say, chalk and cheese to when we were looking at a one-bed flat in Gorgie back in the day. And there's far more properties on, so stock is larger, so there's a greater choice.
I mean, you can see it overall. I think the stock level is on ESPC.com is up 36% year on year, so there is more stock. Listings have outstripped sales, but we haven't really seen the market grind to a halt rating. It's been really healthy, as you describe.
I think notably average selling time for us, it's sitting at 28 days at the moment, is really speedy. It's compared to the rest of the UK, compared to independent agents, compared to solicitor estate agents, 28 days is pretty zippy. And I think that's a sign of how robust the Edinburgh market is, how resilient the Edinburgh market is, how desirable Edinburgh is as a place to live. We're buffered by our status as a capital city. Edinburgh offers a fantastic quality of life, quality of education as well. So all of those factors are very much at play in keeping the market here buoyant, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. And interesting, the other statistic around that, Amy, is the fall-through rate. So when sales are agreed, again, if the market's not so great, you find that a lot of those properties fall away, the sales fall through. We're not seeing that. 7%, so only, 7% is relatively low. Independent agents across the UK, 25%.
Yeah.
So, a really big difference. Okay, that takes into account England and Wales as well, slightly different market. Yeah. Okay, right, I'll post this question. And so we talked about the market doing well. So I'll give you the yin and the yang here. What sold well, and also what has been a little sticky? Because don't say properties with independent estate agents, full stop, just what has been a little sticky?
Well, we've found that the sort of the lower end of the market has been selling well. We were concerned because of the change that some of the landlords have decided to sell their portfolios, and there's been a flood of rental properties hitting the market. And again, we thought that might have saturated the lower end of the market, but the demand is still there. First-time buyers are still looking for properties, and so it's pretty strong in that sector. The middle market is very, very buoyant at the moment. Education is a big thing. People looking to get close to schools.
Where would you class the middle market as price bands wise then, Matt?
I would probably say you're looking at sort of 250 up to about 550, 500, 550. That area has been really buoyant.
Moving well.
Certainly some of the new build stock that we've had on the outskirts of Edinburgh have been selling very, very well. In East Lothian, it's been amazing. Preston Pans.
You mean brand new builds?
Yeah, brand new, but also second-hand new build is selling pretty well.
I think some of those can be a bit sticky
yes.
in areas where they're
still building.
Yeah.
Pricing is key.
Pricing is key. The builders are back to being able to offer great incentives, bumps towards land and buildings transaction tax, garden landscaping, appliances, some of the stuff that the second-hand ones can't necessarily.
So it's the same house, but you've got the incentives with the other one.
You've got the incentives. And I think in some areas, Roslyn, perhaps Gilmerton, some of those sales are perhaps the ones I would put in the trickier category.
Okay.
Not impossible.
Yeah,
everything sells at the right
Derek's
price.
Right. Pricing is key.
Yeah.
And what we find sometimes with the new build sites is that the marketing of the builder attracts the viewer.
Absolutely.
They look at the properties and then they think, well, actually, we can't afford at this level, but we like the area, so what else is available?
Yeah.
And they look at the second hand, and as long as it's priced at the right level, they'll
I think the thing with new build properties is the whole point of a new build is that you're buying something that nobody has lived in before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's, you're buying something shiny and new, and you're the first owner.
So if it's
smell
2
of a new
years
car.
old.
So, you could argue that maybe the fact that maybe there is an oversupply of these things, which is why the builders are throwing incentives at folk. You can always tell when the market starts to tighten up. The builders take all their incentives away. If there's a lot of stock out there, the builders start throwing incentives back at you again. It's not all that long ago when we were going out and visiting folks in their homes and they were saying, I've seen a new build. This was like February in a particular year, just as an example. I'm really interested in this new build, but completion's not till November, but the builder won't even talk to me unless I've sold. And we're like, okay, so we'll put your house on the market now. Where are you going to live for 6 months? Okay.
Yeah, but they
So
felt
everything
the
was
price worth
stacked.
paying,
But it flips round because the market changes.
Okay, so we mentioned the lower market, and we see that in the stats. Leaf has done phenomenally well. Great first-time buyer market. Generally, mid-market good. What about the upper market? As you say, the 500, 600 and up, million plus. Is that market slower? Start a little bit stickier?
I mean, anything 750 plus that we've put on has had strong and immediate interest. It's not taken a while to warm up to the market. It's got viewing requests the day it's going live. And a lot of them are going to closing dates and achieving in excess of the client's expectations as well. So I think that category of the market is fine. I think it's the tale as old as time that anything that's got a USP, if it's got a fabulous view or great period features or it's got really snazzy decor, something like that, will do well at whatever category of the market. And I would say in the 500 to 750 bracket, those are the things that are flying.
There's a seasonal aspect to consider as well in terms of the market this year. If you've got a nice garden, you're unlikely to put the property on the market at the beginning of the year. You tend to wait until the sort of the spring / early summer. And the very top end tends to, we find, list probably, towards the end of May, June, sort of, so over 1 million plus.
Yeah.
But as Amy says, 750s, that sort of area is selling very, very well.
Good. Okay.
It's interesting actually that we're talking about the middle market and we're talking in terms of price bands. I think we also have to drill down on style of property, because in my experience over the last kind of year, 2 years since the whole Liz Truss thing, the mini budget interest rates went flying high, and all of a sudden folk who thought they could afford their mortgage couldn't. We were finding that there was, first time buyer stuff surprisingly still going okay. Upper end of the market, good quality family homes, 4 or 5 bedrooms, study, home office, as everyone's looking for, garden. Since lockdown, everyone wants access to outside space. These things all going really well. So, and Edinburgh's all about school catchment.
I think
Let's
school
face it, you know.
catchment this year, perhaps
Absolutely.
more than ever, with a Labour policy potentially coming in about adding VAT to private school fees, is very much at the forefront of buyers' minds when they're looking at buying to be in a school catchment area. How good is that school? You know, what's the reputation of it? Does that reputation still stand if it's a few years out of date? And things that are in the areas where the schools are excellent, you know, they'll sell very easily.
Yeah. Of course, there's no guarantees now that you'll get your kids into the local school.
No.
That's true.
Which so people
That's
looking
true.
for the sort of what are the alternatives.
Yeah.
We could do a whole show on school
School catchment, yeah.
It remains a
absolutely.
very busy part of the
Form an
ESPC
order of
side,
review.
you know.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you to sort of predict what the next 6 months might hold for the marketplace. Derek, I'll start with you. You can't mention Truss's mini budget again.
I'm no fan of it.
Forget about it.
Have you bought a book? There was only 2,000 sales of a
I think
book.
that the next 6 months is going to be interesting. I wonder if the whole subject to sale thing, at long last, I wonder if that trend might be reversed.
Just explain maybe for people who are listening who are not sure what you mean by that.
Immediately post-COVID, there was a real shortage of supply in the market, and a lot of folk were staying put. A lot of folk equally decided during COVID that what they had didn't work for them anymore, so they wanted outside space, home office. Said that a few times as well, sorry. But that's just the reality. So people were kind of offering for stuff subject to the sale of their existing home. Now, I had a wee conversation with Mr. Gray before we came on air. At what point did that actually make it onto a formal offer as a clause? Because I think going back historically, 25, 30, 35 years ago,
You
it
have
was
to have
accepted
sold,
that buying
you
was the hard
rented.
bit.
Yeah.
So you went out, you threw thousands of pounds at surveyors, you went home, stuck a board up at your own place, folk formed a queue and it would sell. So I'm not, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. I mean, if somebody is looking for a 3-bedroom something somewhere, they'll get it.
But you, I think what you're saying is we have almost sleepwalked into a slightly English model where we're seeing change, which we never used to have.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I think that can clearly be delineated with the increase of costs of bridging finance. So, crash of 2008, prior to that, people would sell their house, conclude missives in a couple of weeks. If they hadn't got their own property sold in time, they'd arrange a bridging loan. There'd maybe be 4-6 weeks of that that they would factor in for, and then everybody would get on with it and the market would keep ticking over. Now, because of the cost of arranging bridging finance is so expensive, nobody wants to do that. Nobody's going to take that risk. So the way that they protect themselves is that they put that their offer is subject to mortgage and subject to sale. And they don't want to take that leap of faith of selling their family home without knowing what school their kids are going to go to or where they're going to live.
And we can understand this, but what advice would you give to a seller who has
I
two
would
offers?
say the best way to put yourself in the best position on the market is to sell your own property first and let your agent, by using a good quality professional solicitor estate agent like Nielsen's, like the firms sat either side of me, we'll manage the timescale. We'll negotiate the date of entry. We'll make the puzzle pieces come together. By using a solicitor estate agent, you've got a solicitor overseeing the entire transaction who is duty bound to act in your best interests. So they're not going to sell your house with you having nowhere to go, and they're not going to buy another house without you being able to pay for it. So, that's my advice, is generally leave it to the professionals. Get that professional advice at the outset. Sell your property first. You'll know exactly what you've got to play with financially, and you'll put yourself in a much stronger position as a buyer. I think.
Okay, let's get back to the outlook.
Sorry.
I think that's exactly
No,
it.
it's a good point, yeah.
I think that worked in a certain market when there was a really limited supply.
Sure.
We're not in that market
No.
anymore.
And if you've
Get on
got
with it and sell your property.
absolutely.
and if you've got two offers, would you be almost advising your seller now, if one's got one to sell and one hasn't, are you telling your seller to maybe...
Listen, the sellers aren't daft these days. They know when they're phoning up to inquire about a viewing, what's your name, madam? What's your phone number? What's your status? Where are you in the food chain? And if the answer is, I've got something to sell and I'm not on yet. If the answer is, I've sold, money's coming.
A good agent and solicitor should investigate thoroughly on behalf of their their seller the interest in their property. And, if it's an absolute stone waller, in terms of that the purchaser will sell that property within a period of time because the type of demand there is for the property, then you can be relatively confident. And as long as the market is continuing to grow in the way that the market is growing, then there shouldn't be a problem with it. But what we've found in the past is when the market starts to plateau off, if it slows down, let's just say interest rates don't start coming down and the market starts to take a bit of a plateau, then I think there's real dangers there.
I think 2 offers on the table, everything else is completely equal, the way that they're financing it, the amount of money that they're offering. You take the offer that's not subject to sale.
A bird in the hand.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the outlook.
Sorry.
So we've got.
I digress.
It's the hobby horse. Every time we get solicitor agents in the room, this comes up. So we mentioned there, you might see a slight change in the way these offers are put forward and a shift in the market. Amy, what's your predictions next 6 months? What are we going to see?
I mean, we've got 40% more stock than we had last year, so stock's up. But as I was saying earlier, we've still got those fast selling times. So I think that we're going to continue on in the same vein. The year in the property market tends to be front loaded. The first half of the year, that buoyant spring market, we get a second bite at the cherry in the autumn once the schools go back, and it will be very telling what happens this year with that market. Obviously, the thing that we'll all look forwards to perhaps is the general election and what that will bring, and the timing of that can be fundamental to the property market because we'll get a lot of buyers and sellers who won't want to do anything until they see who we've got and what's happening, and then following on from that will be due a Scottish election as well. So there's a couple of sort of banana skins on the road, in terms of where the property market will go. But Edinburgh remains an extremely desirable place to live with a robust and resilient property market. So I'm not planning on writing up my CV just yet.
No, indeed. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think Amy and Derek are absolutely right. Edinburgh is a phenomenal city. There's interest in living here. The standard of living is exceptionally high. It's an interesting place to be. The employment levels are pretty high. There's plenty of opportunity for people. The education sector is fantastic. The universities. So there's lots of reasons to be cheerful. And as long as we can keep some stability in the market, then I think we'll see more of the same of what we've had so far this year. And as Amy says, there's always a bit of a slowdown towards the general election, and then things speed up again. But that's probably where we're going to be. I think it will maintain what we've currently got.
Amy, you mentioned there that seasonality. Something that we wanted to maybe chat about as well is, what advice would you give to anyone who's maybe on the fence thinking, it gets a bit quieter over summer? Should they come to market in the summer?
It very much depends upon the type of property that you're selling as to whether that seasonality is relevant. So the seasonality that we typically see for family homes is very driven by school term times, school holidays. And in Edinburgh, that market doesn't drop off a cliff edge, but quietens down significantly for the first 2 weeks of July. And that's mainly because the English kids aren't on holiday yet, and Scottish families take advantage of cheaper holidays. There's not quite a mass exodus, but it does mean that your viewing levels will likely be much quieter at the beginning of July. Then we get the festival, and Edinburgh transforms into almost a completely different city for a lot of the summer, and that can have a negative effect on property buyers wanting to be in and out of viewings, wanting to navigate their way around the city. So I would say if you were looking at selling your classic 2-bedroom flat, probably wait till August is out of the way. So it depends upon the type of property. It depends where the property is. It depends if there is perhaps a pent-up demand for that type of property that eradicates any sort of seasonality. But again, speak to a solicitor estate agent. We'll keep you straight.
And genuinely, the ESPC stats are superb for helping understand the market. And, as you say, if you understand that there's a high demand for 2-bedroom flats, 3-bedroom flats. And what I've noticed about the market is it used to be traditionally seasonal, but it has changed slightly, and we're seeing that people are selling flats in the sort of spring, and people are selling houses in the early spring, late winter. It's there's no rhyme and reason for it other than job moves and various things like that. So it's all to play for.
Let's leave it there. What a great way to end. So all to play for, and a steady, more of the same, I think, is what we're hearing for the next 6 months. I got my answer in the end. Thanks, guys. That was really good. Really appreciate you taking time, and I think everyone listening will certainly get something out of today's show. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
So there we go. That's the view from the experts about what's gone and what's to come, and I thought that was really good.
If you would like to listen to part 2, which, as Paul mentioned at the start, is the more macro look at the political landscape, you can listen to it wherever you're watching this right now. It's available now, and it was another great episode, so we'll let you go and enjoy that now too.